to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, Realtor listeners. Today I have Dan. He is the CEO, founder of PushPress, gym management software. And if you follow his Instagram, I was going down the rabbit hole. A lot of video content and a lot. It's an easy watch. So, congratulations! Nice work on the Instagram right now, Dan.
Thanks, man. It's something I've been putting a lot of energy into, just to see if I can give back to the world at large from some of the stuff I've learned.
Random question. So, I was looking at the feed right on your reels, and it looked like for like every like 4 reels that weren't necessarily about PushPress, it was like other things. I mean, do you have a certain number that you kind of go off of?
No, actually not really. I just kind of riff on whatever's top of mind and what's going on. I try to make sure there's a healthy mix of stuff for gym owners, for general audience, for gym members, etc. But yeah, honestly, I could probably put a little more energy into making sure there's some ratio to everything that I do.
Just curious. I mean, you never know. Some people, it's just kind of like the gut thing. Sometimes it's just like what I say. I mean, I do the same thing for our videos for the real estate. It's just like, okay, going in, you got to do 5 videos. All right, here are the topics. Let's just kind of riff off it. Yeah.
I mean, in general, my focus is just deliver value in general to the people that you're trying to talk to, and it'll all kind of work itself out. So a lot of it's just rooted mostly in that.
So are you a big fitness buff, being kind of you're in the space?
I'll be honest, like for the last couple years up until maybe this year, work and being, this new role that I have consumed me to the point where I definitely got out of shape, and I am working back through that right now. Yes. So I'm every day at the gym nowadays.
How long has PushPress been around for?
Since 2013. So Math in Public says 11 years. Hopefully that's right.
So, I mean, do you see a difference of when you were working out and like really into the space compared to now when you basically, maybe it's not a top priority? Do you see a difference in like, I guess, the flow of the business because this is so centric on gyms?
Wait, what do you mean specifically? Like,
I mean, like I've talked to trainers on here or people that sell products that are directly in that space, right? I mean, if you're doing it every day and then your kind of outlet is working out, sometimes that can be a burden, or sometimes it kind of change your. I don't know. So it's trying to figure out if.
I think the special sauce of PushPress in general is how connected we are to the industry that we serve. So one of the problems I had was not being in a gym for a couple of years because I was so inundated by the business. I felt more disconnected than ever with the clients that we serve. So no, I would say the answer is no. Like, being in the industry that you serve, I think, is imperative for you to have the empathy and the understanding of what needs to happen.
Gotcha. Well, let's rewind. I mean, because you have these two synergies. You have kind of the software, you have the gym aspect of it. I mean, growing up, was young Dan more into the software aspect or more into like the fitness? I mean, how did this kind of come to pass?
Yeah, I mean, quickly to go through that, I've always been athletic, was a sports player all through high school and, younger youth athletics. Went to college, became very aspirational about being, I guess, an entrepreneur or successful, whatever that meant. So dove headfirst into my career, which became, because I've always been entrepreneurial and I've always been driven, I became a software engineer as a result. Because when I went through college, I went from, I graduated in like around 2000, and the internet was the thing that was popping at the time. Became an engineer, sat at a desk and coded for 15 years, became overweight, found my way into a gym, fell back in love with like lifting weights, being athletic, doing sports, quit my job as an engineer, opened a gym, and then started PushPress as a result of opening the gym, and found my way right back behind a desk. So it was like a kind of ebb and a flow to it all.
Was it one of those just things where you kind of slowly over time kind of started working out less and less, and that's kind of how you kind of progressed, I guess, to getting?
Yeah. I mean, I think as with anything, it's kind of like you choose what your priorities were. Yeah. And for a while I chose, when I opened my gym, I chose fitness, head over heels, went into fitness, was coaching classes, doing fitness all the time, was super into it, started the software. And it's like, anytime you have a baby of any kind, business or human or whatever, it requires a lot of attention. So then it was like, I started shifting my attention less and less from my own personal wellness into the wellness of the software and the business and the company. until it hit a different breaking point where I'm close to 50 now, and I'm looking at myself and I'm like, I've only got a few more good years to pack on some strength and, be the best person I can to myself, so that once I hit 60 and I'm definitely in my decline, I've built enough buffer for myself. It's just all the stuff that I know because I'm in the industry, and I can't just ignore it because I'm focused on building this business as well. So, you gotta ebb and flow with your own life.
So where did the jump come from, being an engineer and then kind of opening your gym and kind of putting together this software?
So I think it's all rooted in the core construct that I consider myself an entrepreneur in general. Okay. So as an engineer, I would only work for startups because it was like fun and exciting, and we got to build new products for new markets and stuff like that. When I jumped to opening a gym, I actually opened a CrossFit gym because I felt like CrossFit was the closest thing to being entrepreneurial in the fitness space. Like they were building this really cool science-backed fitness movement that was, they were actually looking at numbers. It felt more like an entrepreneurial journey to me. So opening a CrossFit gym was obvious, like it was interesting and obvious. It felt very entrepreneurial. And then once I got in that space, I realized a lot of the gym owners needed help. The software wasn't really where I knew it could be. So I felt like there was a challenge in actually helping gym owners fulfill their missions to their communities by building better software and giving them better tools to do so.
So let me just make sure I have the time frames of the structure, right? So you were working for other individuals as an engineer, and then made the jump to kind of start your own business because you had that kind of entrepreneurial juice inside you.
Yeah. So it was basically, I was working for other people doing software, completely pivoted, opened a gym. And once I opened the gym, I realized that the software was lacking for gyms and started building the software for gyms, and then kind of pivoted myself out of gym ownership and back into being a business owner, building software for gyms.
What did you take away from all the different entities that you kind of worked with in the entrepreneurial space?
There's a lot of lessons, and a lot of lessons I'm continuing to learn being an entrepreneur myself. But the biggest one I would say is speed matters. Speed's everything. And the faster you can learn from your market and your customers, and the faster you can make those adjustments back into your business and create this feedback cycle and loop of adjustments and listening to your customers and making adjustments, the better chance you have of surviving. And the end goal of starting a business is basically durability. Like, can you survive? Business is the closest thing I think we've got to natural selection. Like, bad businesses will go out of business, great businesses will flourish. And if you really think about the science of it all, even going into like the science of natural selection of organisms, being able to ingest data, understand what matters, make adjustments to continue your survival, the better chance you have at building a sustainable business.
So when you were working for the other companies, could you tell early on, like, if they would make it or not make it?
No, the funny thing is actually what I realized after the fact, once I quit and opened my gym, was I only worked to get a paycheck. Oh. And this is why I opened the gym, because I started to realize later on in my career that like I was literally wasting my life 2 weeks at a time. I would get paid, and then I couldn't wait for a weekend, and then I couldn't wait to get paid. And once I got paid again, I was already looking at the next 2 week cycle. And like 10 years of my life had passed wishing my life away 2 weeks at a time. And so I kind of got to the point where I realized like, I want to live my life day by day and enjoy every day. So it's like, you have to follow whatever your true passion is to get there.
Was there, was it a slow burn, or was it like something happened where you kind of realized, hey, these 10 years just went by and I'm not enjoying it? Did something happen, or was it just?
No, it was just like really doing a little bit of self-realization and looking at yourself in the mirror and just realizing like I wake up every day, I drive across town, I show up at a desk with a bunch of people that are building things that I personally just didn't care about, and no offense to my old bosses or old companies if you read it, but it was like, it's like my last full-time job, I was working for like a Pinterest agency. And the reality is just like, I couldn't wait. Or even at Myspace, when I was at Myspace, like I couldn't wait to leave and go to the gym. And if a meeting popped up at the end of the day, that meant that I couldn't get back across town and into my class at the gym that I was at, I would get really upset. And really that was what spoke to me and made me realize that like, your heart isn't here really. Like you're just showing, and the irony of it, when I started thinking about it, is like, I made a certain amount of money, which paid for my house and my car and the daycare and all of the things that allowed me to go to work to make the money to afford the things that allowed me to go to work. And it was just like this stupid cycle that, I don't know, I looked at myself and I'm like, why am I busting my ass to make all this money, to pay for the things that allow me to make money. Like didn't make any sense to me. So that's why I kind of just aborted the whole thing.
So at the time that you switched over and opened your gym, I mean, it sounds like you had a family, kid and a wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, that has to be, I mean, it's not like simply just giving away it means giving away stability to make that jump into kind of starting your business. Yeah. So what did that kind of look like? What was the thought process? Was it like, I got to save this much money before I can do it? Or was it just like, hey, this is what we're going to do. I need to make a change.
So, I mean, a lot of this, and this probably coincides with a lot of people's terms like midlife crisis and stuff. A lot of this happened, I guess, going back to your question, was there a moment that allowed it to happen? And for me, there was a divorce. Oh. So with that came like a whole recentering on me, because I realized I'd spent 10 years of my life worried about people other than me. And this may or may not sound selfish, and you can take it for what it is. But once I was going through the divorce, I realized my happiness matters too, and I was going to this job so I could support a family, to do all the things that like weren't necessarily fulfilling to me, but was part of the construct of the marriage I was in. I think if you're in a marriage and you find yourself in this situation, you need to have a heart-to-heart with the person you're in a marriage with, because, there are the realities of, I have a house and I have to support a family and I have these things I have to do. But on the flip side of it is, what there can be an alignment between what really fills your cup and what can make you money enough to support your family. And maybe some of the stuff you're doing as a family, like vacations or big, fancy cars, or, whatever payments you've gotten yourself into, can be cut back for happiness, because at the end of the day, your happiness matters more than any car you drive or whatever. Like, I was driving a Subaru, even today, like with PushPress, like I was driving my last car was a Subaru. It was a $299 a month car, because I don't want to get locked into an expensive payment that's going to make me make bad life choices at this point.
Do you ever think if the divorce never happened that you would still be at the old job or other job like that?
Something would have had to give, because I was miserable in general. So it was either like my own mental self would have had to give and just break, which I think a lot of people do. Like they break themselves to make their families or their situations work. Or I would have had to have that heart-to-heart and say like, look, not happy here. Like I'd rather have less things in life and more happiness than vice versa. And I still believe that to this day. Like I am more at a point today where I have the financial resources to do the things that I want to do, but I still don't have a nice car. I don't care for it. Like I just don't want, I'm very cautious about putting myself back in that situation.
Do you think there's going to be a point down the road where you're like, this is my big splurge? Like when you get to.
For sure. But the problem with our society in general is the capitalist society leverages debt for happiness. So right now people are buying cars they shouldn't, taking vacations they shouldn't, doing things they shouldn't. And I've learned to just be happy with a little bit less at this point. If there comes a point in time where I have enough money to, I'm not a car person, so car is a bad example, but buy a house, let's say, or, take a trip where it's first class both ways and it's, nice hotel and it's whatever. And I'm buying back time and I'm buying back convenience. I probably will do that. I just won't bake it into my day-to-day lifestyle, I don't think.
I'm trying to figure out the right way of saying it, because it's interesting, because your mindset is very minimalistic, right? And then you see, there's a lot of influencers in the personal training space, right? Where sometimes it's not really who they are, but they have to kind of portray it to kind of get it. What's your kind of thought on, I guess that culture?
I understand why people do it. Because in business, like the perception of what you represent often precedes the success that you have. Like meaning, I've got a nice car, I've got a big house, I train fancy people. That actually creates the demand for your business. And this isn't just in fitness, this is across many, mostly service, right? Like you can't do this as someone who's actually selling a good, but mostly service businesses. I just don't really agree with that. I'd rather lay low, do my thing, be as successful as I can be, and attract the people who understand what I'm doing, but not flash things to drive that to happen. I'd rather someone follow me on Instagram because of the philosophies I have, as opposed to the car that I drive, let's say,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Like the information you provide more so basically than the flash, I guess.
Exactly. But I do think we live in a world today where the flash generally precedes, and I don't know if I'm on the winning side of this argument in the long run.
Well, you opened up your gym, you kind of saw that there was something missing, right, with the software. What was the first step in kind of building it, or what was the first step in, I guess, making the jump?
So this goes for any business. The first step in building any business is understanding what the customers want. And because I happened to be in the customer pool, that became easier. And I was friends with other gym owners, so that became easier. So I do think when you open a business, if you come from outside of the industry you're trying to serve, it's harder because you've got to meet the people, understand if you can trust the people, are they feeding you valid information or not. But kind of going back to what I said earlier, the business can be simplified down to this loop of understanding what customers want, building it, and understanding if you built it right, and then repeat. That's business. Doesn't matter what business you open. So, I mean, that's just the long and short of it all. Is like, I would build, if I can go back and do it over again, what I've spent 10 years doing now, or 11 years doing now, I think I could do in 3 or 4. Like, I just think the way I approached it wasn't intentional enough of building feedback loops into everything. So that's the change I would make.
So was it more the developing of the software, more of kind of like a nighttime thing, kind of focus on the gym during the day? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So again, it's like the gym was actually paying my day-to-day living expenses at that point. So it was like the software was an afterthought. And I tell the story often. There was a point in time in, I think 2015 or 2016, when I told my software business partners, like, I think I'm out and I'm going to focus on the gym because the gym has way more potential of making money. Today, that's funny because the software has grown to be so big. But I think it's just exemplary of showing that, like, everything you do is going to be a grind, and you're going to have points in time where, like, you give up or you feel like giving up. And luckily for me, my business partners were like, slap me in the sense and said, like, dude, like, don't do that. That's a bad choice. So no matter what it is you want to do, if you want to get in shape, you're not going to get results as fast as you want. If you want to start a business, you're not going to get results as fast as you want. Like, very, very lucky people hit lotteries, but when you hit a lottery, it's not sustainable. So it's like, you actually have to go through the grind and the suck of doing whatever it is you want to do in the beginning without results to understand what it's like to appreciate the results when it comes. Yeah.
So you're expanding, you've been in the business for, around 13 years. What's been like the biggest hurdle kind of getting to the point that you are today?
We had a lot. We built this business organically, and we've watched people build businesses around us with like venture capital infusion or whatever. So if the first 7 years or so were very organic, and it always feels slower than you want. And again, I can liken this to, a person who enters the gym for the first time, who has, not put themselves as a priority for 20 years, and then all of a sudden entering a gym and wants to see results in 2 weeks. Like, it's just not going to happen. You have to grind. And so, the first, I can point to so many moments in PushPress's history where it's like, hey, when we get to $10,000 a month in revenue, we're going to be great. And once we got there, we realized we weren't. And then we're like, hey, when we get to $1 million a year in revenue, we're going to be great. And we got there and we weren't. And then it's like the goalpost just keeps moving. And it's like, it's so defeating for a while. And then you just start to realize that's what it is. I remember going back to my financial partner, and he's like, well, when you get to $3 million a year in revenue, you're going to be great. And then we got there and we realized, like, nothing changed. We still weren't great. Like, there's still more problems to solve than there were time to do it. And no matter what, if you really are kind of like customer empathetic, like we are, your customer pain is going to hurt you more every day than the progress you feel like you're making. But when you stop and pause and look back, you're like, well, we've actually done quite a bit of stuff. But today, the customers are not, like, there's still stuff we can do to make our customers happier. It's never going to end. And I think coming to that realization is probably like one of the bigger things you have to do, that, like, you're literally signing up to get punched in the face every day for infinity. Like, it never will stop. Doesn't matter how big you get. Elon Musk gets punched in the face today, world's richest man. That's just what you're signing up for when you start a business. And that, I didn't realize that when I started the business. I thought there'd be a point where you're like, cool, I'm good. Never.
So when did you learn how to celebrate, I guess, those wins, I guess?
I think that's a weakness of mine, to be honest. Like, I don't think I'm so in tune with the customer pain and the things like, my vision is so big. I don't stop enough to celebrate. And I think it's when we have these big moments at PushPress, like when we raised some money with venture capital, when we actually paused for a second as a team and said, wow, like, other people actually believe in us now. And they believe in us because we've done ABC and we've proven XYZ. It's only in those moments that we do. I think the blunt honesty is, if you are too focused on celebrating wins, you won't win. Like you've actually have to be the obsessive type person who's like just never happy enough, which is hard on the teams that work around you. And you've got to find moments to celebrate them, moments like take the foot off the gas for a second, give people some props, or build it into the mechanism of the company you're doing. My company, I'll tell you personally, we've built a company that feeds off our customers' happiness. And so we have, like, in our Slack, we have a customer love channel. And anytime a customer leaves us any type of feedback in any crevice of the company that like is positive, we've trained people to share it, because that's kind of the moment where we can go like, all this shit that we're wading through is actually worth it because this person just recognized it, you know, and it comes up multiple times a day. So
that's a great, a lot of business owners right there, just a simple thing you probably incorporate into any business is, right, have that love channel, I guess.
Yeah, because ultimately you are suffering through building this business for two reasons. One, in the short term, to make sure your customers are better tomorrow than they were today. And two, hopefully it's for some long-term financial payoff that all your grind and suffering is worth it. The long-term payoff on the financial thing, you won't know and you won't realize for a decade. So it's like, you need those moments every day where like, oh, you know what? Billy just wrote in and said that we made his day, or Mary just wrote in and say like, we saved her business. And like, those things actually carry a lot of weight in the moment.
So what's your moment of, I guess, zen, right? Is it traveling? Is it like a morning workout? I mean, what gets you away from getting punched in the face?
I think the biggest thing that's gotten me away from the sting of being punched in the face, is realizing that you will be punched in the face constantly, daily. Like, I've just accepted it as the fact of being in business. But in terms of like, I haven't historically escaped. I just literally came back last week from a 2-week off the grid, coast to coast, Costa Rica, like hike. Like we walked and biked across the country. Yeah. And that was an interesting experience, because it was the first time in years that I've actually unplugged away from the business for, you know, days on end. I would get internet every now and then and check in, but it would be so overwhelming, all the stuff that had happened in the last 72 hours, I couldn't even deal with it. So it was an interesting experience to, one, completely unplug. Like, it was the first time in probably years that I've slept 8 hours a night. Like, I haven't slept more than 6 hours for years. That's just my life now. And two, it was very interesting to see that I left for 2 weeks, came back, and the company was probably in a better place than it was when I left. Like, the machine is going now. And that's really really good to feel, you know, from my position, to see that happen. Yeah. My team is killing it.
Do you think there's ever going to be a time where you're going to get fed up or tired of getting punched in the face all the time? Like, where you're just going to have to...
I'll tell you this, if there ever is a time where I get tired of, or, you know, complacent of the customer pain that is out there. And when I say punch in the face lovingly, because it's like, our customers are experiencing pain and they need better. And I just think, if I ever get to the point where I'm indifferent to that, I probably will leave. Like, that's my sign that I've lost touch with what the customers need. And I do believe that that's, in today's day and age, at least. I made this reference in a reel recently, where it's like, in the 1920s, baseball players could show up drunk and smoke cigarettes in the dugout. And today it's like the athletes are beasts, right? Like, absolutely not. They've been training for this since they were 8. And I think business is the same. It was okay before to like run business a certain way. And I think business leaders today, and businesses have to be built today in a way that's different, in the same way. You've got to build a beast. And so if I ever get to the point where I'm like, I don't care if the customer is in pain, like I've got to put another killer at the top who's willing to go from there, you know?
So if we were talking in 5 years from now, how do you feel your company is going to grow, expand, or maybe just yourself is going to grow and expand?
A lot of our growth is going to be in continuing to build the world's best product for gyms. And I think we sit at a really cool inflection point right now, because like technology is getting cheaper to build, technology is getting more expansive. And that combination allows technology to be built for the group of people that I serve, small businesses that have never been available to them before. Like, airlines have had access to big tech for decades. this mom and pop coffee shop and the mom and pop gym around the corner has never had, they've been on pen and paper until the last decade, you know? So the cool thing, in my opinion, is we're able to build enterprise level software, things that have only been reserved for governments in the 70s and airlines type, you know, industries in the 80s, for these small businesses now, because it's now cheap enough to do so. And it's the tech is available for them. I think the competition we play against, by and large, does not have the desire to or the access to building that deep of a product. And so we kind of sit in a position where we really get to drive our own destiny and invest as heavily into building the world's best gym management software as we can for gyms.
A question that I always love asking, especially in this space more recently, has been artificial intelligence. How is that playing any kind of factor in kind of future plans, I guess, for your software?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, AI, and then in the bigger picture, like machine learning and big data sets are going to change the world for everyone around us. We're already seeing it, and we can see the glimpses of it. And I'm sadly old enough to have gone through a couple of these moments in my life, when the internet popped in the 90s and when mobile phones became smartphones in the early 2000s. This is the same moment. Like in a decade from now, we're going to look back and be like imagine right now if you told a kid, like, dude, I used to like have a pager and go to a payphone and call somebody, you know, like imagine that. Like they're like, that's what we're going to be like in 10 years from now, when people are like, dude, before I used to have to like look at a chart and figure it out. Like no one just told me what to do. Like AI wasn't a co-pilot for me for my life. That's where we're going to be, like where our fridges and our refrigerator is going to be telling us like, oh, you need to restock stuff. Let me just order it from Amazon and have it delivered automatically. Like that's where we're going to be in 10 years. So yes, it's, and again, I do think PushPress I'm very bullish on where we are as a company, because we have 10 years of data. AI needs data. It is worthless without data. And we have 10 years of data. And, you know, so it's like, we're not new enough where we don't have the data, and we're not old enough in the spectrum of business where we're not willing to invest the big money into doing these things. So we're sitting in a really sweet spot, I think, to actually make this happen for gyms.
So, I mean, if you're trying to paint a picture, I guess, for a gym and incorporating your guys' software with, I guess, artificial intelligence, what would that kind of look like compared to where we sit now?
Yeah. So right now, the software world, by and large, I mean, go rewind 5 years. Software is a process-driven system that somebody can like log into and know, like, when I want to do task A, I go to this page and I fill out this form. You're just filling out forms is what you're doing. And so if you really think about that, that's no different than someone handing, like in the 70s, someone handed you a piece of paper and you like filled out a form, and then someone took it and processed it and did something with it. That's all software is today, except it's like automated and it's digitized and it's database driven and blah, blah, blah. Where AI is going is like, imagine if you had the world's smartest real estate assistant hanging out with you, who has had exposure to every real estate deal in the world and knows everything every real estate agent has ever done in the history of the real estate internet world. And that person's hanging out with you and they're like, hey, Vinny, I think what you probably should do in this deal is lower this by this much and instead go after this other end of the deal, because it's looking like that's the better way to go. Mm-hmm. Just imagine like how that could change your business if you had someone in your ear at all times saying like, yeah, that's the right way to go. Or maybe we should tweak this deal this way because, you know, all the data I'm seeing looks that way. And it's so much like petabytes of data that you as a human being can never go through. But this little robot that's sitting in your ear can go through in 1 second or maybe 20 seconds, you know, like astronomically fast. That's where, and I think this is where like small businesses are going to benefit the most, like real estate agents and gyms, because it's like, governments have had access to this kind of thinking and this type of a process forever, but a small coffee shop or a real estate agent or a gym, like they're just sitting there trying to figure out how to run their business on their own. Mm-hmm. So I think it's gonna be massively impactful for small businesses, mostly.
It's gonna be like your own personal coach, right? Yeah,
exactly. Like the concept is co-piloting. So I think software is going to go to the point of like, you know, if you're a gym owner, imagine you log into the gym system and it's like, oh, hey, what's up, Vinny? While you were sleeping last night, I looked at your data and like, here's the 3 biggest things you can do today. Like, imagine how much that would change your world if it was like, instead of you trying to figure out what to do, it's just like, here's the 3 biggest things you can do today. And here's why. And oh, by the way, I took care of these other 5 things for you already because you've told me like just to handle this stuff for you. Like that's game changer for small businesses.
Yeah, that's some powerful stuff right there. And again, I mean, I've probably said on other ones, if you're not using AI or no plans to use AI, you're going to be left in the dust. I mean, it's crazy what's going on.
Yeah, AI adoption is going to be like, I mean, I remember when email first came out, and a lot of people told me like, oh, why would I do that? I can just write a letter. Like that's like, and now that seems stupid, but at the time people thought that. Anyone who's kind of fighting AI, that's what you're saying is like, why don't I just put a letter with a stamp on it and just send a letter to somebody? It's faster. Well, not soon. Like AI is going to, but the cool thing now is technology is so pervasive that people will just use AI and not even realize it. Or they, you know, it will start to enhance them in a way that like the friction will be removed. When we went from writing letters to email, there was enough cultural friction. People didn't understand the difference. But now it's like, oh, I'm going from using a software to using a software that's even better. Like I'll just do it. People will just do it.
Well, thank you, Dan, so much for being here today. If people are listening and they're looking to get more information, they own a gym, looking to kind of follow you or get, talk about the software, what's the best way of getting more information?
Yeah, so PushPress is at pushpress.com, spelled kind of like it sounds, PushPress, oh, right here, .com. Pretty simple. You can get me on Instagram. I'm at Daniel-san, like the Karate Kid guy. We've actually been kicking around the idea of changing it to just my last name, but I don't know if people will know how to spell that, which is Uyemura. That's a tough one. So yeah, you can get me on Instagram. Like I said, we give out free reels, one a day, just of great business concepts, a way to think about things.
And I'll finish with this one last question. If someone's listening right now, maybe they don't own a gym yet, but looking to start a gym, kind of work their way up to gain the software and everything and so forth, what would you think to be the first step they should do in kind of the pathway of starting a gym?
Okay, so the first thing they should do is use our free account. So we actually built a free version of PushPress for that reason. I don't want gym owners to say, I'm going to wait to buy software, because software is so important to running your gym that we give it away for free at the early stage. The second thing I would say to do is to get a website and get Google My Business connected to it. So I think one of the things that I see people miss when they're starting their gym is they don't connect their Google My Business right away, which means that you can't be found locally. That's kind of one of the hardest things. So definitely get GMB going. There's probably a million things you can do. Get software, find a free one. I think we're probably one of the only free ones still, and get GMB.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, free is always nice. Google My Business is free too. Those are two easy steps. So if you're a personal trainer looking to start a gym, I mean, 2 easy steps you could do today. There's no excuses right there. Thank you, Dan, for being here today. For everyone listening, we do have a sponsor, Melody Cloud. If you're looking for some relaxed music, go on the show notes for Melody Cloud. If you need any residential real estate in Southern California, reach out to the Ricas Group. Thank you guys for listening. Please go on the show notes. Go find PushPress. Go find Dan. And subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Right on.